Contrary to what we see nowadays in hero movies with an excess of CGI effects and explosions, The Batman comes off as an almost minimalistic movie. Add that, the noir/detective tone, and a touch of dark and sometimes macabre elements to it, and you've got yourself a very interesting piece of film. For this video, I'll be using a trailer footage both to try and avoid being demonetized and keeping things spoiler-free at the same time. The very last segment of this video will have heavy spoilers, but you'll be given a fair warning before it happens. The first thing I must mention about The Batman is not the Dark Knight itself, but Gotham City. Its atmosphere is so vile, so hostile that Gotham becomes a character in itself, almost like a sentient being that draws the innocent into a spiral of corruption and decay. From its streets to its parking lots and subway stations, Gotham gives that foreboding feeling that, unlike in Marvel movies, everything's not going to be alright. Batman's plight will always be a zero-sum battle, and he knows it. And speaking of our Caped Crusader, all eyes were on Robert Pattinson. How was he going to portray the world's greatest detective? There are certain terms I'll avoid using because they bring out certain ideas and concepts from our subconscious that, to be frank, don't really do this movie justice. This is his second year of crime fighting in Gotham City. Most of what he does isn't exactly refined yet. He's not the Batman most of us know, no, not yet. However, Pattinson's rough edges are not exaggerated or overacted in a condescending way of telling the audience, hey guys, he's not a pro yet. Did you see him messing this up for no reason, guys? Yeah, he's not a pro. Did you see it? You know, he's not. Each of his mistakes, which are more like hiccups, are played out very well by Pattinson. And this is in line with what a steel green Batman would be. No tantrums or overacting. While he does groan in pain and seems to be made up of pure hatred, this depiction of Batman has every possibility of developing into the monster predator we've all grown to love. Still on the Batman subject, early into the movie they play out on one of my favorite concepts about Batman, his looming presence. Real or a product of paranoia? Even though he cannot be everywhere and solve every crime, criminals fear him. When a bat signal goes live, thugs second guess themselves, even if they're not sure he's actually there. And once again, this isn't overexposed to make sure even the dumbest person in the room would understand it. This concept is exposed very punctually, but never intrusively. There's the scene where a criminal drops a spray can, which rolls to a dark spot within what seems to be the city hall. His look of fear tells the whole story about who, or rather what, Batman's become to people like him, even though Batman's not actually there. Which brings us to the subway fight. Now, I'm not one to overanalyze movies, I find that ridiculous and egotistical to no end. But that being said, a lot is exposed here. The moment Batman shows up, those guys know they are done. The real twist here is Batman's sheer violence against the first thug he takes down. It's shocking. Not only because criminals wouldn't expect someone who supposedly fights alongside the law to do something like that, but also because his level of sheer violence is much higher than their own. At the end of the movie, he comes close to offing a guy, and that's absolutely in line with the character and the way he was both written and portrayed in this movie. Really good stuff. Back on the Green Batman issue, I was really impressed with the way his accidents and mishaps were portrayed. In a world of excessive CGI shitfest that would give you a seizure before even thinking about bringing any real death to the story. Good and well-measured action scenes make events that are grander actually feel very impactful. There's an old adage that goes, if everything's big, then nothing ever really is. Which brings us to the car scene. Instead of the stoic and collected Caped Crusader we've seen for most of Nolan's movies, this version of the Dark Knight drives like a wraith, a man possessed by vengeance. And while he's certainly skilled behind the wheel, he doesn't have near godlike reflexes or an almost supernatural read on the flow of traffic itself. He gets tagged quite a number of times. Another subtle but nice exposition of his character are the moments where the camera switches to his passenger seat facing him. He shows tension, but once again, never overacts to make sure every last person in the room understands this. He's still green, sure, but you can see that he's also learning how to overcome his fears. He's learning how to dominate himself. And as a musician and composer, there's another element I must mention about this movie that hits threefold: the soundtrack. Whenever Batman is on screen during hostile situations, the soundtrack takes a turn for the macabre. This tells us in a non-verbal or visual way who Batman really is. And it also shows us the terror felt by his, well, almost victims, even though they're criminals. Just pay attention to the final Cobblepot scene at the highway and you see what I mean. He's not afraid of going to jail. Cobblepot thinks he's going to die. Now, speaking about Batman's alter ego, Bruce Wayne, it was also very consistent with what a green Batman would act like. He hasn't created the playboy persona yet. He's still very self-absorbed and dismissive of Alfred's recommendations, such as attending to meetings and such. This version of Bruce Wayne almost feels self-destructive. However, there is one particular scene with Alfred where Pattinson kind of drops the ball. I'm not sure what he was going for in that particular moment with Alfred. If you've watched the movie, then you know what I'm talking about. But whatever it was, it didn't work out that great. Speaking about Zoe Kravitz, who, yes, is Lenny Kravitz's daughter, who has amazing songs besides what you heard on MTV, and believe me, knows how to create a killer guitar tone. She does a competent job at portraying Selina Kyle. She helps Bruce out with very interesting investigation scenes using special lenses that allow him to see in real time all that she sees. And she also has a very hefty score to settle, which does play a big role in this movie's plot, and it was very well implemented. It never went overboard, but was never so short as to feel shoehorned or used as a mere plot device. Really good writing. And there are also some really interesting exchanges between Selina and Bruce. She does manage to size them really well, more than he'd like. And there's also this one scene where Batman and Catwoman, they have a go at it. They start fighting. And without spoiling too much, I just want to say that I'm really glad with the way that fight ended. It ended the way anyone would know it would end. It's also worth mentioning, of course, Andy Serkis' solid performance as Alfred. He doesn't get a lot of screen time, but like a teacher of mine once said, there are no small roles, only small actors. He delivers a very powerful performance of a man sworn to both serve and protect an orphan, and make sure to hit hard when the situation calls for it. I'm looking forward to seeing more of him in the sequel. Still on the good guy's side, there's also Jim Gordon. There's good chemistry between Jeffrey Wright's Jim and Batman. There's an established trust among them from the outset, and the exchanges between the duo make it, ironically, clear as day. The police station scene between the two of them was really well delivered by both actors. Now, on the wrong side of the law, things are also very interesting. We do have iconic villains like the Riddler, Cobblepot, Falcone, and let's just say that there's also another guy who makes a very brief appearance, but we'll leave it at that. Now, the first thing I absolutely need to say is that this was the very first Riddler incarnation that I actually found very interesting and even threatening. His outfit screams psychopath, and the riddles he leaves for Batman all come with eerie undertones from the movie's noir and almost minimalistic overtones. His first appearance is very striking. You can only see the light's reflexes on his glasses. And what follows next is executed in a very raw, very animalistic way. Really good stuff. And the way the Batman uses the Riddler's riddles, oh my god, that's so hard to speak. Try saying that fast out loud 3 times now. But as I was saying, the way this movie uses his riddles to compose, to compound the overall dark and noir detective tone it has, feel really organic. Now, since this movie has a darker and more somber nature, now I won't go as far as saying that this becomes a horror movie like I've seen some journalists, of course it would be them, who else would say stupid shit like that? Journalists claim that it was, but the Riddler's crime scenes are very unsettling. And there's also Falcone, of course, with whom Bruce Wayne has a certain exchange that shatters Wayne's world. Yeah, I also remember that movie. That was not done on purpose. But as I was saying, it shattered Bruce's world and drives him further down the abyss. Later on, Alfred tries to reverse this, but to no real success. Wayne still has a long way to go into dealing with his own inner demons. As for Cobblepot, or the Penguin, as most of us will know him, is also there. Now, he's more like a secondary villain in the Batman, but his character was well implemented into the narrative without being detrimental for things to come. Let's just leave it at that. There's also one very specific moment which actually made me laugh, but it wasn't done in a Marvel way, okay? Let's throw jokes at every single motherfucking situation that we can. That wasn't a joke. It's a moment where you'll laugh because of the situation he finds himself in. Okay, it was really well done. Now, when you put all of those elements together, the Batman delivers a solid and impactful experience that managed to be familiar and fresh at the same time. Well, whether or not Pattinson was the best Batman Batman or Bruce Wayne is absolutely debatable. And speaking of which, let me know in the comments your favorite actor to play either of them. Okay, you can pick two, one for Batman, one for Bruce. I really want to know because that's always interesting to hear from people. He certainly did a very solid job and delivered a strong Batman to all of us. I'll remember this version of Batman. In an era where superhero movies and series come out left and right with less and less quality and thought behind them, this rendition of our Dark Crusader is, ironically, a shining beacon that, yes, hero movies can still be made and bring more than explosions and cheap fuel for embarrassing internet debates. However, there's a catch. That's only until the movie's second hour. And this is where we will enter the spoiler territory. If you don't want any of the movie spoiled for you, then go watch something else. Perhaps something on my own channel. There's reviews, specials, guides, gameplay videos in 4K. There's a lot for everyone. And thank you for watching, of course. Let me know your impression about this movie in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, then consider checking out and joining our members club. Just click the blue button. And while you're at it, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. Now, okay, for all of you who are still here, this movie does have issues. I'd say minor ones before the 2-hour mark and colossal ones during its final third. Let's begin with the minor stuff. First off, when Batman goes to Cobblepot's nightclub looking for information, he uses the front door. Really? That's the best he could come up with. Really. Now, I don't expect ninja-like abilities from a steel green Batman and having him appear behind Cobblepot at the bat of an eye. That was... fuck, it was intended. But for a guy this smart and perceptive, there's 100 ways this could have gone south both for him and the people inside. Now, I know the fight scene at the club looked really cool, you know, with Batman taking a bat from a guy and Batman using a bat to bat a guy out of his conscience, but this issue still stands. It was nothing that made me roll my eyes or anything that would actually subtract points from the movie itself, but hey, it's there. Next is the bomb scene. How could Batman be so stupid as to not even try to get away from the blast when he knew there was absolutely nothing he could do during the final seconds? Him still being green has nothing to do with it. This would be basic self-preservation. He had no reason whatsoever to just sit there and take it. Not even some sort of emotional attachment to the man about to go sky high. God damn it. And then there's also Selina's advances towards Batman. Now everyone knows that things are never a straight line between her and Batman, but her two first advances felt shoehorned, unconvincing. You know, it's okay, we're just gonna leave this here, you know? The final one made sense though. Now, about Batman being shot left and right, this didn't really bother me all that much. You know, the infamous tunnel scene where he powers through a hail of bullets and decks everyone did look really cool, even though, yes, a single bullet to his face would have ended things right there. And now... God damn it. And now comes the ugly part that made me feel the movie switched writers and director after Falcone's arrest. The Riddler in jail. God fucking damn it. As soon as he's arrested, Batman confronts him in lockup, and during the Riddler's exposition, we see an absolutely pathetic person with very stupid reasons to do all he's done. The renovation project for the underworld level orphanage he grew up in was cancelled after Wayne's father's death. So he decided to take out liars and corrupt people. Yeah, that's it. I'm not making this up. I'm not making this shit up. He follows up with a cliche monologue about how unfair, you know, how unfair it was that for a young Bruce Wayne to be called an orphan, saying that Bruce grew up in a tower up to his neck with money and looking down on people, and Jesus Christ, man, really, that was hard to watch. You know, that's cheap, that's unconvincing. I'm sorry, I didn't buy this. I couldn't care less about his story because in the end, the Riddler comes off as a whiny brat. That's it. He's a whiny motherfucker. All of the dark persona that had been built up until that point goes away the moment he opens his mouth inside lockup. And I'm gonna be honest with you, it actually took me a little while to process the colossal U-turn the movie had pulled on me to actually let it sink how embarrassing this was. You know, as the scene was happening, I was thinking, you know, is this really it? Is this really how they wrote the Riddler to be? But, you know, unfortunately, this does go on, and he tries convincing Batman that, you know, both of them are the same. And when pushed back by a very reluctant Batman, which was really well done on Pattinson's part, you know, he breaks down and lets out one of the most pathetic cries I've ever heard in my life. Now, this doesn't come from a person who has some severe issues. No, man, what do we see here? This breakdown that the Riddler has is out of line with his character, no matter how frail his true persona, his true self may be. This is ridiculous. I don't buy it. And again, man, Batman wasn't even pushing back all of that hard. You know, this wasn't Christian Bale levels of intimidation. This was Robert Pattinson talking back to someone who he's not really convinced he's all that different from. So here's a too long didn't listen version of it. The Riddler: man, you and I are the same. The Batman: we're not. The Riddler: that's really the gist of it. I'm not kidding. Oh my god. But we're not yet done with the laughingstock the Riddler reveals himself to be. Unfortunately, it goes on. You know, later on, there's this scene where they gain access to his computer and find his account in a private forum where we learn he's been telling every one of his 500 followers what he would do, how, and when. We also see some of them giving out recommendations on firearms and such, and yeah, the social criticism was definitely not lost on me. You know, after all, I've met a lot of blowhards ever since I started this YouTube channel. The Riddler's thought process is beyond stupid. How the hell did this highly intelligent motherfucker decide to create a forum where he would tell all of his plans to everyone tuned in? Didn't it occur to him that someone could record everything and spill out the beans to the press, you know, somewhere else, to the police? Dude, a YouTuber knows all sorts of ways to record information that's being displayed on screen. We know how to do this. It's not hard. But okay. Let's say that there was some sort of magic technology, yes, this one was absolutely on purpose, that would prevent anyone from recording anything or taking a screenshot. A shitty cell phone could have done the fucking job. And still on his plans, how the hell did we really consider that people would actually show up to help him to an extent where he actually factored them in his final plans equation? Most internet blowhards had trouble saying thank you to a cashier's automatic and blank smile. What follows next is the Riddler's grand plan of flooding the city, but the reasoning behind his plans felt so goddamn stupid that it's actually hard to care. Batman's entrance with controlled explosion looked really cool though. Granted, I actually rewinded that scene 3 times. It looked amazing, but still wasn't excessive from a graphical point of view. So this last third of the movie felt like pure corporate overlord decision through and through. Listen, the first 2/3 of the movie are really somber and kind of minimalistic, so we need something big to end it to sell tickets. Problem is, this feels disjointed and scripted in a hurry. The movie ends with Batman reflecting about change, about hope, but the overall execution of the Batman's last third was so out of place that his words end up losing a lot of impact. You know, it's just words lost in the wind. I keep thinking over and over that this movie could have perfectly ended with Falcone's arrest. 2-hour movie, throw in a few well-written and foreboding dialogues. We know the scriptwriters certainly had the capacity to do so, about how the Riddler's still out there, how this threat needs being solved. It would have been a perfect ending and a solid setup. And maybe they could have used the next movie, which is going to happen, you know, as a way. They could have taken, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes, 40 minutes to create something a little bit different, something stronger for the Riddler's reasoning behind doing what he does, make it happen then, and then go forward from that point. It would have worked perfectly. So many movies had done this type of thing. It could have easily ended there on a very high note. Those 2 initial hours felt like 20 minutes to me. Time passed and I didn't even realize it. But beyond that point, it goes downhill. Literally feels like, I can't believe I'm saying this about a movie, but it really feels like an awesome game with a post-game terrible DLC tacked on. Now, I'm definitely gonna watch this again, only this time, I'll know when to stop. Hope you're enjoying this video. Let me know your impressions about this movie in the comments. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Valmont out.